everyone. Welcome to UMDMedia. UMDMedia works on understanding, measuring, and doing. And it strives for contributing to the Horn of Africa's evidence-based, evidence-driven discourse and decision-making. Today, we start a new segment, the H panel, or otherwise the Horn panel. And the Horn panel will be looking at issues of paramount importance to the Horn and the ramifications of today, tomorrow, and the long term. So I'm happy today to have this inaugural panel with the topic on swearing in of Abiy Ahmed, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, and what's next, what to expect, what the outlook, and what is the ramification to the to the Horn of Africa. So the Horn panel, or otherwise called H panel, starts now. Great. It's my great pleasure to have two panelists today. We have Faisal Roble from LA, Los Angeles. He is a principal planner with the city of Los Angeles, and Professor Galaudios Araya from East Coast. He's a professor of African Studies, and he is a director of African Idea. It's a nonprofit organization. They are both. They were both here at the UMDMedia show, and it's great to have you as a panelist. And this is the inaugural panel for the H panel. And we took sworn in. Now what for Abiy Ahmed? For those who want to follow, and I recommend that you follow both on Twitter. This is their Twitter handle for Galaudios Araya. As you see it at the bottom, that's the handle, and follow him for insights on Ethiopia, the Horn, and education, Africa in general. And Faisal Roble, also on Twitter, active on Twitter. Follow him at this handle, Faisal Roble. And today, the plan was to have Sagai Ararsa as well as panelist. So he sent his regret. So he will hopefully join us next time. So this have been the last 2 weeks have been full of number of events in Addis, and we recognize that this will not be limited to Addis or to Ethiopia. So we let's start with the question of what stood out for you in terms of what has happening the last 2 weeks. You can go before that, during the swearing in, and even after that. Faisal?
Thank you very much, Getachew, and I would like to say welcome Galaudios, whom I have seen probably a long time ago at some of the Horn Africa conferences. What stood out for me are many, but I'll just probably confine to 3 issues. Number one, at the inauguration at the Ethiopian parliament, I was really taken aback by how the autocratic culture in Ethiopia has planted roots deep into the socio-cultural system that Ethiopia has. So by just observing the nomination, the names that have been lined up and the way it's read, the lexicons, the culture, the facial expressions, that really tells you that Ethiopia today is closer to North Korea than to any other country. And this has been developing for a while. That's number one. Number two is Abiy's speech at the inauguration, which I thought was a call for action in terms of the war. I think it was empty and bereft of the big topic of reconciliation, with the exception of lip service to that reconciliation, so that the dignitaries who were there in the UN and the rest of the world can hear. But when you parcel the Amharic bravado and language that he was using, he was really calling for war. That's number two. Number three that stood out for me is the setup of the ministerial cabinet. It is really a front to many socio-cultural societies in Ethiopia. I think it's an affront to the Tigray nation, where here there is an issue and a almost determined genocide taking place in that region, and he picks up a paper tiger defense. So it's an insult added to already an existing insult. That was one. And then also how he undermined my own community, the Somali society. Basically, Ethiopia being a federation, he left the Somalis out of the federal structure at all, given the fact that Somalis are the third largest in terms of number. They are not in the parliament at the leadership. They are not at the Senate or the upper house. They are not in any except the ministerial position, which he picked up a man who has been on that seat for the last 25 years. Literally, Ahmed Shide has been a minister since he graduated from Addis Ababa University as a young man. So you can tell that it doesn't reflect really what the Somali sentiment is, or the dismay of the Somalis in the entire process. It's just a personal gift that Abiy has been giving, not only to the Somali minister, but to the entire ministerial lineup. So those three issues stood up for me, and I'll yield it to my friend.
Great, thank you, Faisal. I will come back on the issue of the parliament in terms of not only Tigray and Somalia, but I think two other regions out of the 9 didn't have an election, so nobody represented them in the parliament. So we will come back to that. Prof. Glaudius, so what do you make of what was happening in Addis the last couple of weeks? What stood out for you?
Okay, interesting. Faisal put it very well. Actually, he gave us a synopsis of what happened this last week, and I have had the same idea, as a matter of fact, but maybe slightly different in terms of presentation. But the contents are going to be the same. First and foremost, I was not really surprised at all by what Abiy Ahmed did last time, because a couple of years ago, I wrote an article entitled, "Will Ethiopia as a nation state survive the present ordeal and counter revolution?" In that article, I actually said Abiy Ahmed is going to say he won the election. And he did. In July, they told us out of 436 seats, they say the Prosperity Party won 410. That's a joke. And imagine that election is by avoiding the political parties that challenge Abiy Ahmed, by avoiding many other groups that can represent the nationalities, by actually sidelining so many other personalities, and by incarcerating political prisoners as well. Many of them are now in prison. And then you cannot have a fair election by doing that. There's no way you can have a fair election. But anyway, we've seen this in many African countries so many times. It's not surprising at all. And as far as I'm concerned, the Abiy Ahmed government or regime is a deeply authoritarian and tyrannical regime. He decides by himself. He doesn't listen to anybody. The ministers are simply there counseling him, but he does not really respect them. The parliament is a rubber stamp parliament. We know that very well. And then it's not just by avoiding the Somalis, and the Tigray were out already anyway. So Tigray is not there anymore. But like Professor Getachew said, Harar is not there. The elections were not counted yet. And other regions were not there as well. But anyway, what I've said in another program similar to this one is what they've done is, by the way, incidentally, the spokesperson of the Federation of the Parliament was a Somali, right?
Yeah.
He's not there anymore. Okay. They put another loyal guy who actually was the mastermind of the genocide in Tigray, who is going to be now the chair or the spokesperson for the federation of that parliament. So it's a rubber stamp parliament. It was actually a fait accompli. And they decided ahead of time. They knew who they were going to put in that parliament, including the Afar lady, who is the assistant as a spokesperson for that parliament. So it's a joke as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, ultimately, what is going to happen? We'll talk about it actually in a while. But it seems to me Abiy ultimately is going to lose. But I'm going to stop right here so that we can have a more fruitful discussion tonight.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so let's talk about the optics. Faisal, you kind of mentioned how it reminds many people who were alive at that time to see. So let me just play this one. This was posted by the Prime Minister himself. So the optics, I think, is very important in this. I mean, for the last maybe 30 years, we have been working with, and the terminologies, the semantics. You are talking about how he was using in his speech as well, and so on. So, is this something that we should be concerned about, or is it something that okay, just it happened, we can forget it? What does it say in terms of where we are heading or what we are up to under his premiership? Galaudius, Professor Galaudius, you might start here.
Yeah, you have to paraphrase what you just said, Professor Getachew. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I was saying, with the optics, with the semantics, all that, what we are seeing, it is something we can just simply ignore, or does it tell about something that's coming, something that's different and might be of concern for those who really follow the country and the nation?
Okay, that's a very good point. Okay, you know what? How I view it, how I see it. Okay, there are two things going right now surrounding Abiy Ahmed and his whatever you call them. Okay, so on the one hand, you see, they always say they're going to do this and that and that. The president of Ethiopia, Sahle-Work, actually was talking a lot in the parliament. It was a long speech. She was talking about development and all those things and all those things. But on the other hand, she contradicts herself by saying we have two enemies, Ethiopia has two enemies. One is external, the other one is an internal one. Of course, it implies that internal is probably TDF or Oyane, as they always say. And Abiy Ahmed also said in his speech that he was going to do some kind of accommodation for some other groups, whatever that means. But on the other hand, practically, what they are doing is actually have a program to starve the people of Tigray systematically by blocking all aid, by blocking all transportation and communication to that region. And they never say national reconciliation, by the way. They, by implication, they say something else, but national reconciliation is not there. They never said peace is a precondition to what they call change. They said it's a new chapter. What does that mean? A new chapter. So if you're going to have a new chapter, at least you have to talk about how to reconcile your differences with the groups that are challenging the government. They're not talking about them at all. They have ignored them. It looks like, in fact, they are preparing for another onslaught in Tigray. Actually, they've attempted, because I was told actually that before Abiy was sworn in, long before that, they were gonna send thousands of troops to Tigray and recapture the capital city of Tigray with the aid of the Eritrean guy, by bringing 3 brigades by the Afar regional state. But they were defeated. It failed. It didn't work for them. So I think these guys are not serious about what's going on in Ethiopia. They want to hold on to power by continuing the confrontation, the war. But now it's not just Tigray. The Oromos are going to fight. But 2 Somali groups, by the way, Faisal probably know about them, I don't know. I had a conference in one with these federal groups last time. There are 2 Somali groups now who are going to join the TDF and other groups and Oromos as well. The former, you remember the former Western Somali thing? Now it has changed its name because that's an old story. So that they're not going to buy Mustafa's loyalty to Abiy. The Somalis are determined. They want to jealously guard their self-determination, which Abiy Ahmed is systematically eradicating it, actually. The Afars are going to do the same thing. So he's going to fight with everybody now. A coalition of these groups ultimately are really going to defeat the Abiy government. That's how I see it.
Yeah, we will talk about the outlook. Yeah. So Faisal, on the same question, if you can reflect on that.
Yeah, let me just go back to a couple of the optics that we started with. If you really go back and watch the parliament, it's in a way shameful to find out that the deputy prime minister was literally sleeping. He was dozing off. His eyes were closed, and he was sitting next to the prime minister himself. That was a little bit very sad, and I laughed at it. And then going back to the optics, the Afar lady who was promoted now to deputy parliament speaker. Interestingly enough, when the Somali and the Afar clashed over Garba Isa city region, naturally they clashed. She was the one who went throughout the media all the way to Addis and said that Al-Shabaab and the Somali government, which doesn't even have army, so to speak, are in the war. She implicated Al-Shabaab, she implicated the country of Djibouti, she implicated Farmajos. These are Abiy's allies, except Al-Shabaab, both Djibouti, and that tells you that the people who were in that room have nothing that connects to them ideologically, politically, conceptually. These are collection of people whom Abiy thought that they would be loyal. So that is something I wanted to go back. But in terms of the government that Abiy said he is establishing, is really scarier than any time in the history of Ethiopia. And this is why. Of the 20 plus cabinet that he nominated so far, you can call most of them are empty cabinets because he literally removed the key elements that function under those cabinets and put them under the prime ministers. Also, he took the subcommittee work that the parliament usually oversees and has the oversight and put them under the up to 30, I believe, branches that were either in the ministries or under the auspices of the parliament subcommittee are now in the prime minister's office. This is the image that really emerges for me when I look what has happening the last 1 week and so. Abiy has been promoting what Mobutu Sese Seko was, authenticity, wearing Oromo wardrobe, is wearing this pan-Ethiopian cultural thing. If you remember when Mobutu came to power in the 70s, he, threw away all the wardrobes of the West and then put this to just cheat the people, to mislead the people. So on the one hand, Abiy has elements of Mobutu Sese Seko. Then his Ethiopian Tikdam concept really parallels what the Derg was, this pan-Ethiopian nationalism that's dangerous, that says take it or leave it. You are either Ethiopian, Ethiopia will not. That this concept that I keep repeating, which is really an element of fascism, is also the character that Abiy is building. And then the Museveni attitude that I've seen with Abiy, the one dominant party system that really blankets everything, even when he picks up people like Burhan Naga, quote unquote, who are vying for the top leadership as an opposition, are now told that, no, you can belong to this umbrella, but you have to abide by the PP's concept, which is what Museveni promoted for a long time. People have a little differences, but in terms of the bigger ideology, we control it, we prescribe. So the Addis Miraf, or the new chapter that Abiy is promoting in a way, is very dangerous to the multinational, multicultural thing that Ethiopia has been vouching for a long time. And I think as a Somali, this is the scariest time. When I talk to people, when they write on my page, I have been running issues in the last 1 week. There is no, and I would emphasize that, there is no mass support for the Abiy regime. Even the ministers and the people who work with Mustafa in private will talk to you and oppose. This is really a shell government that is just sitting in power, either because they bribe some elites or they scare some groups, especially as you go, you see that in Tigray, but as you go outside of Addis Ababa, people's loyalty are predicated upon safety of a clan, safety of a tribe, safety of your land, or even the development projects are predicated upon supporting PP. We have stories in Jijiga where people run, very small number of people, run on independent ticket. Literally after they won, they were told to walk away because literally there are other boxes that just substitute the one that you have seen. I would say more than the Derg, Abiy is walking into a dictatorial autocratic system that would be not detriment to us, but detriment to the ones who are blinded by the so-called Ethiopianness. For now, they're giving Abiy everything, every power without any check, as long as he's doing three things. That he can do the war in Tigray, no matter what. Even wiping out that nation, they are willing to give him the benefit of the doubt as long as he's doing that. Number two, as long as he can get rid of the constitution, particularly the peoples, nations, and nationalities of Ethiopia. If he can do away with that, they are willing to give him a free reign. And the third is, and this is where Burhanu Naga comes in, as long as they can take rid of the educational system that was based on the multinational culture, so that Oromos can have their own education system at certain level, Somalis, Tigray, Sidamas, what have you. Burhanu has been talking about the educational system being a problem for Ethiopia. So the sad story, this is Getachew, that's what is saddening. This entire elite that believes in the so-called Ethiopian unity are willing to live under severe dictatorship for a period of time that they cannot even predict, as long as Abiy delivers to them on this chauvinistic agenda. And that's a very sad commentary for the people of Ethiopia, who number 215 million people.
Mm-hmm. That's a somber picture, that a grim picture that we are seeing unfolding in Ethiopia, with strong support from the elite. Talking about Brahanu, and again adding to that discussion of optics. So we are seeing here on the screen that Brahanu Naga being Minister of Education, and then you have Kajala Merdasa from OLF, the Minister of Culture and Sports, and then we have Belleta Molla from the NAMA, the National Amhara Movement. He is now the Minister of Innovation and Technology. So to what extent are these appointments more optics than anything else? Because you are alluding to the fact that actually Berhanu's being Minister of Education could go deeper than what some people try to undermine, that it's it's not the high level cabinet minister, all that, but what you are saying is it could go parallel to undermining the constitution and the education system that is there. So maybe talking about education, Professor Galaudius, it's your area. So what is your assessment of what could unfold with Brahanu, who has been an ally of Abiy Ahmed during the last 11 months, even beyond, since the last 3 years and so on. So given also where it come from Eritrea, Gumbo Sabat chair, all that and so on. So do you see anything that we should be concerned about? You are muted. Let me just, now you can, yeah.
I'm sorry. Absolutely. We have great concern for sure. But anyway, let me make a bit of reflection on what my brother Faisal said. He came up with a good point with respect to where Abiy Ahmed is heading for. In fact, I've been writing all my life, actually, really, because it has to do with my work, and of course, I have this African idea as well. And there was one article that I wrote. This was also a couple of years ago. In that article, that idea was precipitated by Abiy himself, because in one conference he said, I think I'm going to be more and more intolerant. I think I'm going to be, I'm going to have this left to me to become a dictator. Can you imagine? This is saying in a conference. And nothing was happening then, actually, really. But anyway, what I wrote then was, is Ethiopia heading toward a one-party or a one-man dictatorship? That is what is happening now. But we have to see that in the context of their bigger agenda. The big agenda of Abiy Ahmed, of the Amhara National Movement, of Berhanu Naga, and others, and others, and others. These guys actually have been working for the last 2 decades Abiy Ahmed himself told us that he was doing some work internally within the APRDF and conveying messages to Burhanu Naga when he was in Eritrea. He was giving them information. Okay? They've been working together. And then when he came to power, they were invited to come in. They've gone to Ethiopia. They joined him. I knew they were going to come to power. I knew it very well. That Burhanu Naga at one point was going to be appointed by Abiy Ahmed. But now what's their agenda? Their agenda is to dismantle systematically the federal structure, number one. Ultimately, they're going to dismantle the constitution too. But now they're using the constitution as a vehicle to facilitate their interest and their transition to power. Okay? But ultimately, what they're going to do is they're going to say, we're going to reform the constitution. They're going to rewrite it. They're probably going to, the first measure, the first action they're going to take is they're going to wipe out Article 39, which gives a right to self-determination of the Ethiopian nationalities. And then they're going to say, we don't need this linguistic thing, language differences and nationalities and what have you. It's very divisive. We need unity. So we're going to have a unitary state, not a federal state. Okay? This is what they're going to do. I am like 99% sure they're going to do this because they are heading toward that. And Abiy is using this group now. Faisal put it very well. The ministers are nothing. They're going to just be the salaried bureaucrats, and they're not going to challenge him anyway. The parliament, like I said earlier, is a rubber stamp parliament. But ultimately, they might even shut down the parliament. Because earlier, Faisal said, it's becoming more like North Korea. But I don't want to go that far myself. The closest is Eritrea. It's becoming like Eritrea, actually, Ethiopia now, under Abiy Ahmed. And imagine, Isaias Afwerki is the number one ally of Abiy Ahmed. And if you go to Eritrea, there is no constitution, no parliament, no political parties, nothing. Just one dictator. So Abiy is going to look like more like Eritrean president, actually. That's what's going to happen. But there is a difference between Eritrea and Ethiopia. At least in Ethiopia, we have the nationalities that are fighting. The nationalities that are fighting. They're not going to simply stand by and then let Abiy do whatever he wants to do. That's not going to happen. Actually, he's terrified too, by the way. By the way, this guy is in the nature of dictators, by the way. Faisal said it earlier, but dictators, they do whatever keeps them in power, period. That's what they're going to do. However, is he going to last? Given the nationalities, the TDF, and now the Somalis joining, and the Benishangul, and the Afar, and the Sidama, by the way, are all closing ranks now. So he may not have a chance. It's not like, void in Ethiopia, like in Eritrea. There are people fighting. And then, of course, on top of that, there are other things that, because Ethiopia is in shambles, in total crisis, so he's not going to really try to recover the economy or what have you. They have no interest in that at all. So I see the fall down of Abiy as a matter of fact. He may stagger and stay there for some time, but he's going to fall down.
Okay. So great. To your point on the dismantling the federal structure, actually some people are already discussing. These people are the elite, the diaspora intellectuals who are supporting Abiy, and this is from their recent discussion. So Dr. Yanas Birru is he was actually the co-chair of the Economic Council that's advising Abiy Ahmed. He resigned. I think there was disagreement between them. So this is in the people-to-people discussion forum where he's responding to someone who was talking about the old 14 provinces, and he's saying that he's not disagreeing with that, except that the timing. So he's saying if we are going to go to the old 40 provinces, you will erase Afar, Benshangul, Somalia, Gambela, and all that. So he's saying let's wait, but they are saying let's go for it now. So you can comment on that as well, Faisal, in terms of the ramifications of the way things are going and the way the elites are, in full force. They are just talking about differences in technicalities, not in substance. They are supporting it. So, what national and maybe regional ramifications do you see if things are allowed to go the way they have been going so far?
Getachew, so yes, this I think if you look what happened and what's happening now, what happened last week, the government is the executive and the legislative body, and the legislative is the parliament, both houses. And basically 410 out of the 490, whatever, were one party. So basically those are the ones who established the government. Ministers are just at the tip of the prime minister. They're not there to really do much work except to work at the pleasure of the prime minister. Whatever he wants, they would do. Whenever he wants, he can fire them. So they are not that. It's like me working for the city of Los Angeles as part of the executive team of this city. I am, but I can be dismissed anytime. The parliament 410, as Dr. Gladio said, being PP, tells you that this country is the one party, one rule, one PP that's running everything. What can they do? They cannot do anything. So in terms of what they can do or what they ought to do in Ethiopia at this particular time, I think we don't have to miss the focus on what is Ethiopia's current problem really. It's the war in Tigray. The biggest issue that Ethiopia is facing today is that. Is there any proposal or any indication from his party or from the ministers that he placed that this man is serious about resolving this nagging issue? A 10-year-old child will answer to that and say no. So let's put that. Secondly, all this chatter about where they will take Ethiopia to a new chapter, this and that. Ethiopia's history has been a battle for equality and equity and justice of the nationalities and nations of this country. It is really waste of our time and the remainder of the time of the young people who are growing in this country to tell them that they will take this country back to the era of Haile Selassie or the era of Mengistu Haile Mariam. History never goes back. So for those who are advising this, this new prime minister, that they can undo the history of the last 40 years, it's just waste of time. They are playing music to his ear. The Minister of Education, he would wish to destroy the educational system as it is today, which is predicated about the Constitution. But as a 30-year program, plans don't hit the ground in the first 10 years. Even if they try to change the education system for the Oromos, the Tigrays, the Somalis, the Sidama, and wanted to centralize, you cannot change things in a meaningful way. That's why we have 5-year, 10-year plans. You can throw the theory and the concept on the table, but for that to take effect takes a long time. You do that where the nation is falling apart, where the economy is literally in shatters, where there is no cohesion. You can have just spot planning here and there to try to get your goal. He may get the agreement of the plan that Prime Minister has from the regional presidents. For instance, the Somali regional president has already been known to Abiy that he doesn't like the federal structure. He can get that from the Afar president. The question is, can he get what he wants to do, as Dr. Gladio said, from the nations and nationalities of Ethiopia, who have had issues way before Abiy. See, Abiy thinks that those who are opposing his agenda are opposing because either they don't like him or they are on the wrong track. No, this is a historical issue and a cultural, socio-political issue people have been trying to address for the last 60, 70 years, and to try to go back on that by picking up a defector from Oromo Liberation Front or an Amara nationalist who wants to impose his culture on 110 million people, or some disgruntled elite who yesterday was fighting Eritrea tooth and nail, i.e. Birhanu Nega, because I know him. They wouldn't even call Eritrea the name Eritrea. They will call it Sha'biya. So this is a theater. It looks like everybody is playing in this theater to appease Abiy, and Abiy trying to appease the pan-Amara and pan-Ethiopian nationalists, knowing that they will not reach the target. Derg tried that, he failed. Haile Selassie tried that, he failed. You cannot impose something that the people don't want. So instead of Abiy coming at his inaugural and post-inaugural with a serious political agenda to sequence the issues that is facing Ethiopia, one, to immediately finish the Tigray conflict, to release food and ration to the starving Ethiopians, i.e. Tigrays, to address the famine that has spread throughout Ethiopia, all the way from the Ogaden, Ferfer, the last part of that region, up to the Amhara region, where people are dying in mass. Even the UN secretary mentioned that the current situation that Ethiopia is facing is famine, man-made famine, and hostility. Instead of addressing this, he's trying to tell us that he will take us back to history. And I would just simply say that this is really a man who lost in a dream that he knows, and most of the people who are singing for him know that it will not be possible, but they go with emotion. And that's the sad story that the Ethiopian people are facing. I haven't seen any serious proposal to bring Ethiopia's issues to the table, the war, the famine, and the economy that is really in shambles. As you know, even in Gondar, people are crying about the debacle in the economy. So the sad story that I have witnessed this week is that I see a trajectory of war and conflict and famine and all that are not good for the Ethiopian people.
Great. So you are following the first inaugural panel, H panel, Abiy Ahmed sworn in. Now what? With Professor Glaudius Araya from East Coast and Faisal Roble from the West Coast. This is talking about not solving the Tigray genocide, the war on Tigray peacefully with negotiation and so on. So it looks like they are determined not to go that way unless forced. This is a recent celebration at Mescal Square. This is one of the biggest outdoor celebrations, religious holidays in Ethiopia. And this is in the capital, the largest square in the country, one can argue. So, and the Pope or the Patriarch of the Orthodox Church was meant to as always, make a speech. So this couple of slides showing the speech that he was forced, according to UMDMedia reliable sources, forced by the advisor to the Prime Minister, Daniel Kibrat, and the mayor of Addis, Adanich Abebe, to remove it from this televised address he had. And everything that's removed speaks to an appeal for negotiation, for peaceful talks, to stop this war, all these things that are happening to Tigray and beyond, like Faisal mentioned, in Amhara, in Afar, in Somalia, everywhere, people are suffering. So is this something that tells about how the government, pushed by the elite supporters, want to go completing the genocide and hopefully, bring about what they are hoping or dreaming about? So maybe what do you see in terms of outlook, the coming months, weeks? Where are we heading? And you can also talk about what happened at the United Nations Security Council this week, what the US has been doing from the executive order and beyond, the CNN report on the role of Ethiopian Airlines. So all these ingredients, what kind of food are we cooking in Ethiopia? Professor Galadios?
Okay, that's a good point. You see, the thing is, Abiy Ahmed actually is a very stubborn guy. He's a naive, politically naive as well. It's a combination of many things, difficult to define as a person. So he's not going to buy national reconciliation that I proposed so many times. By the way, incidentally, before the war started in Tigray a couple of months ago, before that, I rewrote actually what I wrote a long time ago on national reconciliation and sent a copy of the article to the Ministry of Peace. And only one person from that office responded by saying it's a good article. That actually was, for me, an indication that they had no interest in reconciling, in peace, and whatever. And then, of course, they declared the war, and we've seen all these catastrophic incidents in Tigray, including genocide, of course. Now, also, I don't think he's going to learn from that experience. Abiy is determined to continue the war. Some people have proposed, including the patriarch that you've just shown us, to accept mediation, to scale back the attack on nationalities, and then sit for a political dialogue. But I don't think he's going to buy them, because increasingly, supported by his good friend Isaias in Eritrea, they want actually to continue the war. But how are they going to do it? Now the war is not in Tigray. It used to be for 8 months, but now it's in the heart of Ethiopia. In fact, the TDF is almost close to Dessie and Kombolcha now. So what are they going to do after that? Okay, so it looks like it's going to be either he's going to somehow survive by ultimately accepting to sit down and talk to the nationalities forces, which I doubt very much, but he might be forced to do that in order to survive. Or he will simply continue the war, and then we're going to have a more devastating phenomenon in that country. More people are going to die, more people are going to be displaced, and so many things are going to happen. And ultimately, like all dictators do, he might flee. That's what Idi Amin did, you remember, long time ago. he took his plane to Saudi Arabia. Abiy Ahmed might do the same thing as well.
And
Okay?
Mengistu did the same, right? Mengistu did the same.
Mengistu did the same too. Nobody knew that Mengistu Haile Mariam actually, long before he flew to Zimbabwe, he actually sent his family ahead of time, his wife and his children. And Abiy might do the same thing. Actually, I might do the same thing. So I don't think he's going to sit down for negotiation, for a peaceful resolution to the conflict. I doubt it very much. That's not how I see it.
Yeah, actually, many, including I think the U.S. authorities and others, were hoping after October 4, he would, sit for negotiation. But he has been, like you mentioned earlier, that he has been making an effort to for the military to deliver him a victory that he can announce either during the Ethiopian New Year, if not, during or before the swearing in ceremony. So that didn't seem to happen. So Faisal, can you paint a picture for us in terms of your the way you see how this will play out in the coming near future?
Abiy is, first of all, a prisoner. He is a prisoner of social gurus that he promised to cater to. And they are powerful social gurus, control media, control the economy of Addis Ababa, which hosts 80% of Ethiopia's GDP, and those have a swing on him. That's how, so he will try to go at any length to see if he can maintain and contain that group and maintain their support. But he has triple issues and problems that is weighing on him that he cannot escape out unless he changes course. Number one, as we said, the Tigray war, which has already spread into Oromia and Benishangul and Gumuz, could also spread to other parts, is something that Abiy cannot extricate himself easily. I remember in 2019, 5 US former ambassadors to Addis Ababa all agreed and said that one of the issues with Ethiopia is that its leaders don't negotiate. Because if you look at the history of Ethiopia, there has never been a time when negotiation has been resolved. That leaves for us whether either Tigray would be completely subjected to genocidal and famine that continues, or they will liberate themselves, and as Dr. Claudia said, even continue the war outside Tigray and into other regions. It's the Goliath David story. I don't see any other way that Abiy would have a heart to resolve this conflict, which is pitting brother against brother, sister against sister. He knows his hands are dirty. He carried the war of not only genocide but rape. And if he runs away, Abiy will face international court, in my opinion. He cannot, so he will die unless we get a revolution from within the countries such as the army, or Tigray has to move all the way as far as they can. That's what the Ethiopian people are today talking. Nobody sees Abiy coming with a change of course. And I really encourage TDF to go as far as they can, strengthen their alliance with Oromia, and reach out to other groups. Because Abiy is not somebody who's going to sit down for peace. That's one. So that force can bring Abiy down. The other force that can bring Abiy down is the economic disaster. Ethiopia with 13% inflation, with going down 2% annually by GDP, which used to grow up to 10% annually in the past 15 years, there will be a total collapse of the economy. And that will pit Abiy against the social groups that he now caters through propaganda. Addis Ababa, Gondar, Bahir Dar, what have you, and the rest of the country. That's the second force I hope will bring Abiy down into his, because the last cash cow that he had, which is the Ethiopian Airlines, is now being attacked and being incriminated as being part of the war. If they lose their international license to be carrier internationally, Ethiopia will be losing billions of dollars annually. Then the third force that I think can bring Abiy down is the international pressure, which is gaining momentum. America is adamant so far, although its attention is sometimes, taken to Iraq and the terror. But if America maintains its layered sanctions and pulls the Europeans, which it's doing, then the isolation that Abiy is facing will also be a pressure. Those three forces, either separately or combined together, in my opinion, as Dr. Glaudio said, would precipitate either a downfall or escape of Abiy to some country. We don't know. Because if you look at Mengistu, there was no genocide charge placed against him publicly. Idi Amin did a lot of atrocities, but there was no charge out there. There may be coming a charge of genocide against Abiy. And if that comes, he will not have a way to run. Therefore, he has to die in Ethiopia one way or another. But his regime will not last long. But as the doctor also mentioned, this is looking at a scenario where Abiy will die, and through that death, he may try to bring the entire country down to a quagmire that we will have difficult to pull it out from that point.
Okay, great. Thank you, Faisal. Thank you, Dr. Galaudius, for the insightful conversation we had today. And gentlemen, I thank you very much. If you have last word, I'll give you a chance to maybe 30 seconds each. That will cover our 1 hour stay. And this, like I said, the inaugural panel we will continue to have, and there is a demand for this kind of perspectives in the Horn and beyond. So, Professor Galaudius, last word.
Okay, thank you so much. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you, Professor Getachew, for doing this program. Secondly, I really have enjoyed the company of Mr. Faisal, a good critic and analyst. And he knows very well what's going on in the Horn of Africa. But the last word I want to say is, where you go based on what's happening on the ground in Ethiopia right now. So the nationality groups, by the way, I have had like a couple of times meeting with some of them in a conference, just as an outsider. And they were actually finalizing toward finding a united front. And soon, I am informed that they're going to celebrate their overarching party. They have different parties, but they have something that they can work together, actually. So those people are determined now. Whether Abiy comes to a negotiating table or not is not relevant to these people. They are determined to actually remove Abiy Ahmed himself. And that's going to happen. That's what I see. Because there are no other options left in Ethiopia now. Because unfortunately, we don't have democracy in Ethiopia. We don't even understand what democracy is, let alone coming to a negotiating table and political dialogue. So we've been doing this for centuries now. You have to remove the people in power by force. And that's the only language they understand. Abiy Ahmed doesn't understand any other language. He will be removed by force. That's it. That's my take.
Okay, thank you. Faisal, last word.
Yeah, equally, thank you very much, Getachew, for giving us the opportunity. And I'm very happy to see Dr. Claudius, whom I met a long time ago at the Horn of Africa conference that used to happen once a year. I'm glad he mentioned that Horn of Africa in our private conversation, because there is one element today that is also a lesson to be learned from that era. That is, we are missing the progressive Amhara elites who always really played a significant role in the changes that have taken place in Ethiopia. Yes, differences, of course. We know all the history of Asimba. We know the EPRP, the TPLF, the Western Somali Liberation Front. We had differences. But I think of the overall goal of changing Ethiopia and moving it to a multinational, not democratic only, multinational democracy was a value that we shared all. It's very disappointing to find that the Amara elite on the one hand want to keep Ethiopia together, but at the same time being the part of the problem of Ethiopia today. It is a very disheartening situation. Some of us even learned how to read left literature through our friends with some Amharas and, for that matter, Tigrinians. Today, to see the Amara elite catering to fascism is really a very sad story. And I make the appeal to them to critique us, to critique even the perspective of those of us who believe in the equality of nations and nationalities, but not to serve a dictator. Some of them already served the Mengistu dictatorship. Now to go back and serve this messianic religious zealot who believes that Ethiopia can be saved through the Bible is really an affront to multi-generational Amharas who always kowtow to the progressive idea. And if they can hear this from a Somali, should probably a little bit give them sort of like cooling of their temperature. And with that, I will say thank you very much for giving us the forum.
Great. Thank you so much, both of you. And like I said, this is the first, not the last. So we'll come back with another topic with the same panel in the coming days. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have been following us on H panel. H panel is a new segment, the UMDMedia, focusing on the Horn of Africa, issues that matter, recent and current events. We'll have panelists discussing and sorting the issues for us in general. Thank you for following us live on Facebook and YouTube. Please share, subscribe, and like so that many can access this material. Your host was Getachew Asafa. Bye for now.